Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is TCG Unlimited. My name is Jamie Leonard, bringing you another video for the channel. Today we'll be bringing you a review for the YCS that just happened this past weekend in Atlanta, 2017. Here today with me just to go over the facts because I do not pretend to be an expert on Yu-Gi-Oh or anything related. So today I have a friend of mine, Jeff, who was actually there at the event. So Jeff, why don't you go ahead and say something and introduce yourself.
Hey guys, this is Jeff, here to talk to you a little bit today about the YCS and how it was and everything. It was very interesting. I have to say it was my very first big Yu-Gi-Oh event I've ever went to. I played the game for a number of years, but it was actually the first huge event I went to for it. So, good to be on with you, Jamie.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to stop by and help do this video just to get this information out there for the younger crowd that want to try to participate in these events a little bit more often. Definitely want to try to always have this content readily available as much as possible. But before we really try to get into it too seriously, so how are you doing tonight?
Oh, I'm doing pretty well, besides the weather and everything. It's a little stormy outside.
Right. But we're not going to let the weather stop us. We're going to try to get this video done. Power goes out. We're gonna push through it. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So you attended the YCS for Atlanta this past weekend, correct?
That's right.
All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to ask you a series of questions, and unscripted, of course, because we want your genuine reaction, want your honest thoughts, to try to understand your experience, what you thought of the event.
Of course.
How the event went for you, all that good stuff. So to start out, how was the trip to the event? Essentially, getting to Atlanta, the preparations to get there, that sort of thing.
Well, I will say this: the trip from Alabama to Atlanta, Georgia, was very interesting to say the least. Of course, I went to Atlanta quite a few years back for a Vanguard regional, actually, and the traffic was pretty insane. It wasn't much different, but having to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to head to.
So essentially, just get up in the morning and just go ahead and head that way. Not too much of a big plan type thing.
No, it was basically my friends told me, "Hey, if you don't go, we're gonna go kidnap you and make you go." So.
Oh well, that's an interesting way of going about it.
So it was a free ride, so I wasn't gonna turn it down.
Right. Okay. Well, that leads into my next question. How long had you planned on going to the event? So essentially, when did you decide that you were going to go?
Well, honestly, it was kind of funny how it worked out. I actually wasn't planning on going until like a week before it actually was I won't say a week before it was announced, a week before the actual tournament. But I mean, basically after my friends told me, hey, you must go with us. So I was like, okay, well, what can I do?
All right. So I guess the next question would be, did you practice prior to the event? If so, how long, how much? Essentially, how much preparation went into going into the event?
Well, of course, I practiced a lot. I mean, I started playing a new deck and I was wanting to learn it, but I didn't have much time to learn it, unfortunately. But it was pretty straightforward. And to answer your question of how long, I mean, Sunday through Thursday, and then I took a break on Friday to kind of not, burn myself out before the event.
Right, definitely, because don't want to try to waste too much energy trying to prepare and then not being able to perform at a satisfactory level when you get there.
Oh, of course.
So did you know what the meta was going to be like going into the event? Did that take part in any of the planning, practicing against the specific meta decks to see how you would match up?
Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, of course, Zodiacs were going to be really big there. I expected over 90% of the decks to be Zodiacs, and I believe they were, if I'm not mistaken. And I didn't really see many invoked Wind Witches there. I was surprised, honestly.
Was that something you expected to see, though?
Oh, yes, definitely, because there was a lot of people trying to get the invoked stuff to be able to make that deck. And, I guess people decided at the last minute they didn't want to play it. I mean, I'm sure there was a few, but I didn't play against them.
I imagine there were probably like a couple of last minute decisions, kind of at the spur of the moment decisions, change of ideas.
Oh yeah, because the invoked
Always people
the
always trying to play something new, I guess you could
yeah,
say.
I mean the invoked stuff came out literally. I think it was about a week or two before the YCS, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong on that, but from what I can remember, it seemed like it wasn't but a few weeks ago that it all came out. So I imagine people wanted to play something they were a little more comfortable with, or
Probably something they felt a little bit more reliable.
of course, yes.
Um, okay, so on specific decks, why don't you go ahead and let everybody know exactly what deck you chose to play?
I chose Zodiacs, and I was originally going to play Kaijus with the Zodiacs, but for some reason at the last minute I chose to tech in artifacts. Um, because, I figured, after playtesting the Zodiacs about a week before, I found myself with a lot of dead hands with the Kaijus, and of course, it was unfortunate. I may have done a lot better than I did if I would have kept them in there, but I figured the artifacts might be a good way to go. Um, but yeah, Zodiacs was my first choice.
Okay. Uh, and knowing the meta as well as you do, did that influence your decision on what deck that you thought or considered to bring to the event?
Oh yes, definitely, because the Zodiacs are very, very consistent. I actually think they're a lot more consistent than invoked Wind Witches that people were wanting to play. But I picked the deck because of its consistency, because of its speed, and because of its utility. The utilities that it can use. And it can get around so many big things. It's crazy. I mean, the deck itself is insane.
Right. So you just felt just because of its reliability that was the best option to bring.
Exactly. For me, anyway. I can't
Right.
speak
Well,
for anybody else.
right. And of course, everybody has their own unique style, how they prefer to go about different things. Um, so did you enjoy playing the deck at the event?
Oh, yes. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I enjoy playing the deck every game I play. I mean, win or lose, it's still a very fun deck to play.
Right. And the main reason I choose to ask this question is because a lot of people, especially with the meta for Yu-Gi-Oh, a lot of the time the meta is two or three decks, and a lot of people have always said that if you don't play those three decks, you don't win. So a lot of people feel pressured, especially going into high level events like this, that if they don't play those decks, that they're just not going to do well. So I just basically, essentially, what I want to know is, uh, if the meta influenced you to play a deck that you essentially would not enjoy, or were you still able to enjoy the deck anyway?
Well, if it was a deck I would not enjoy, I wouldn't play it. I mean, simply because of the fact that, yes, you want to win, but you can't win them all. And the whole point of playing a card game is to have fun playing it. Yes, you can drop a lot of money. And Zodiacs is one of those decks where you will drop a ton of money on it first. Of course, I say a ton of money to some people who don't have, very reliable income sources.
Right.
But, and the winner of YCS Atlanta actually showed that you don't have to play the meta decks to win. I respect him a lot because he didn't, use any net decking techniques. And I mean, when you look at the deck on paper, it doesn't make any sense. But he knew it made sense to him, and he ended up winning with it.
Right. And we'll probably touch on the actual event as far as like the finals and stuff goes throughout the podcast. Um, all right. So the next question would be: did you do any kind of research prior to the event on what to expect? You already know the meta, but essentially the question is: did you do any kind of like research internet to determine these are the cards that are going to be in the deck? Do I need to play specific things or play a certain way to essentially counter these meta decks?
Well, I looked up a lot on the Zodiac Mirror match because I already knew there was going to be a lot of those decks there. And I did play a lot of them. Most of the games I played were against Zodiacs. It was a mirror match like I thought. And, I worked on countering Wimwitch Invoked. I did prepare for such as, using Twin Twisters, being very careful because of the fact artifacts were going to be a thing with Wimwitches as well. So yeah, I mean, I did a lot of research on it, and I made sure to, side deck some counters if I had to. I mean, I even went as far as putting Ghost Reaper, or I think it's Ghost Reaper, but and Winter Cherries in my side deck because, of course, you can discard that card and show a copy of a card in your extra deck and banish all the ones in your opponent's extra deck. So it comes in really handy in the mirror match.
So it's simply just a good idea just to have those options available.
Correct.
Okay. Well, that's
Forgive
certainly
me if I got that name wrong, by the way.
Of course, again, we're not going to sit here and try to pretend to be professionals or, experts. We're not going to pretend that we know every card in the game. We certainly are not going to try to claim that. So essentially, so the next question is, you already say this is it's practically the first large event for Yu-Gi-Oh that you participated in. But is this the first time you've ever participated in a large event of this scale for any card game?
No. I mean, when Dragon Ball Z was big, when Score was around, I attended nationals events, worlds events. I really enjoyed that card game, and now I'm not gonna say this is the only event I've ever participated in with Yu-Gi-Oh because I have went to multiple regionals throughout the years I've been playing. But as far as a huge event for Yu-Gi-Oh, yes, this would be the first one other than Dragon Ball Z card game.
Right. Okay, and that leads into my next question. What was your first thoughts upon entering the event? As far as like when you first get there, you walk through the doors. Was it kind of like a surprise to you to be around that many people, to be competing at such a large level of event?
Well, as I said before with your last question, large events usually don't really scare me. It's just that, I don't do well around a large crowd of people. I mean, trying to get pairings was like trying to plow through a train. It was ridiculous. I mean, it was on one side of the wall, basically, and everybody was just packed up in there trying to see where they're at, what table they're at. Yeah, I thought that was a little ridiculous.
So, just a little bit of a cluster, not used to
Yes,
being able to move
definitely.
around a large crowded room.
It was definitely a cluster. I mean, if you walked in a room full of trash and couldn't move, that's basically what it was like.
So certainly something that could be, essentially pretty stressful for somebody that doesn't do these sorts of things regularly.
Exactly.
All right. So my next question would be, how well did you expect to do it at the event before? I mean, prior, of course.
Did
you expect to do okay? I mean, what essentially, what were your expectations?
Honestly, I'm gonna say this, Jamie. I didn't expect to get in the top 32. I didn't expect that. I expected to go decently with my deck, to do decently. But as far as top goes, no. There's players that are eons above me that have been, have much more experience with these types of things. But I didn't expect to scrub out, but I didn't expect to win it all.
Right. So not necessarily saying I'm going to go in there and just do amazing, or I'm expecting to lose immediately. Just saying, let's just go in here, do it the best we can, take what we get, and go with it.
I mean, I just went to have a good time. I was off of work that day, and I decided, hey, why don't I just have a good time while I'm up here?
Right. So nothing in particular, just enjoy the game.
Exactly.
Have a good time. Enjoy the trip, being able to travel.
Right. Like I said,
that's
the whole point of playing this card game is to have a good time.
Okay. Well, now that we're getting into more of the actual event itself, let's go ahead and get the obvious question out of the way. What was your record at the event and all?
I went 6 wins and 3 losses.
Okay, so I guess pretty average for a Yu-Gi-Oh event.
Yeah, I would imagine. I mean, my first region, I went 4 wins, 4 losses, so it was it was a step up from that at least.
Right. And of course, you can't always expect to do just amazing at any one type of thing. It's kind of a learning process.
Right, and it was 9 rounds, and of course my last one was a loss because I was already kind of burnt out and I was ready to go. So
Right. I guess it's kind of especially for long events like that, you kind of have to build up like a tolerance, a
of
certain amount of
course.
energy to be able to sustain
Of
yourself
course,
throughout the event.
and to be honest with you, if I had made it to day 2, I wouldn't have stayed. I would have went straight home. I probably would have stayed in the hotel, went in the morning time, got my prizes dropped, and went home.
Okay, so knowing how everything went as far as your record, everything that you experienced, uh, do you wish you had made any adjustments to the deck on how you prepared for the event?
Well, honestly, if I could go back and change anything, I probably would not have changed my deck at the last minute like I did. Because unfortunately, with card players in a tournament, that's kind of bad luck to change your deck at the last second. But, I
Right.
mean, I think if I would have kept kaijus in there, I probably would have done a little bit better than I did. But the artifacts did work out well for me, just not as well as I would have hoped for.
Right, and the Kaiju's were your first choice, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right. So, out of all the games that you played with your record, what do you feel like was your best matchup to win?
Um, well, that's kind of a tough. Well, I will say I did play against a Dark Synchro deck. It was the only one I played against the entire day. Um, and it's a great deck, but it's really too slow to be able to keep up with Zodiacs. It doesn't really have the utilities to be able to stop them. Um, but that's not to say they couldn't stop them. I mean, it's a great deck, but I think that was my best matchup for the entire day, at least.
Right. Okay. And obviously the next question will be the exact opposite. What do you feel like was your worst matchup?
Um, Against Zodiacs. I
So
mean, it was
just the
like
mirror that you couldn't
right,
quite
and I mean
deal
the
with.
the bad thing with this format of Yu-Gi-Oh is that, especially with Zodiacs, whoever goes first pretty much is going to win the game unless they have a terrible hand. I mean, and the thing is with Zodiacs, the thing that makes them run is a card called Rat Pier. And I mean, if you can't get Rat Pier out, you are not going to win that game. I mean,
Right.
that's just it's the
Some
one to
some
set up your turn one plays. You get them all out your deck, you set them up, and you leave them there and tell your opponent just stick it.
Right, and sometimes some decks and a lot of card games really, certainly not just Yu-Gi-Oh. A lot of card games usually do build the decks focusing around that one key card that if you can't get to, you're probably on the losing end of that match.
Right.
Okay, so out of all of the games that you played, not necessarily the best or the worst games, but do you feel like that you made any mistakes during gameplay, misplays, that sort of thing?
Oh, of course, yes. Especially my first match, I was kind of nervous, and I I made a misplay that it basically costed me the first match of the first round. I mean, not the first match. I'm sorry, the first game. It was
Right.
bad.
Well, do you remember exactly what kind of happened, or is it just memory kind of fuzzy at this point?
You're asking me what
Yeah, I
happened?
mean, what exactly do you remember the misplay?
Well, I was playing against oh, excuse me, I was playing against Dark Synchro, and I decided to max C, I chain max C when he brought out Red Resonator, and he didn't bring out anything else, of course, and um,
Yeah, of course, Maxi usually tells your opponent, "Hey, you may not want to play anything else right now."
of course, I mean, yeah, but at the same time, I think it was a misplay to play it so early in the game because I knew Dark Synchro doesn't special summon, especially as much as. I mean, I'm not saying they don't special summon. I'm just saying they don't special summon as much as Zodiacs do in the first turn.
Right. So just kind of more, not necessarily a mistake, just more of
Maybe
maybe like a slight oversight.
exactly.
Right.
I was
Okay.
thinking too much.
Okay. Well, how is there any way that you think of that other than just not making the mistake? Is there anything that you think you could have done differently so that the misplays and things like that could have been avoided?
Of course, I could have been better at Yu-Gi-Oh! Play better.
Oh, of course, that's the obvious answer, of course. So just try not to make mistakes at all. Just just pretend that you're perfect.
Of course, and I mean, even the best players in the game make mistakes. I mean, it happens.
Right.
You know.
All right. Well, speaking of the player community, that kind of brings me into my next question. What did you think? What did you think of the players at the event? Just as far as player community, that type of thing.
Some of them were really awesome. Some of them were not really awesome. Some of them stunk. Some of them didn't shower, but some of them did shower. I mean,
right.
I was actually.
Well, I think that's going to be most big level events. You're always going to have those people, no matter what you do.
But I will say this: I was sitting next to a guy in the first round. I was sitting right next to him. Of course, we're all cluttered together, so we weren't that far apart. But anyway, this guy, I remember him sitting down. He absolutely reeked. It smelled like he had just jumped in a pig pen and let pigs lick him. It was that bad, and I smelled him. I didn't reach over to smell him, of course, but I smelled him so far away. It was ridiculous. And I was actually about to raise my hand and ask the judge if me and my opponent can move to another spot. But, and then I remembered I had body spray in my bag, Axe body spray, and I took it out and I sprayed him with it. He looks at me like I'm crazy, and I said, sorry, man.
Not to be ugly, but got to go.
Exactly.
Got to deal with this.
Exactly.
Right, and and it's not, and obviously that's not just Yu-Gi-Oh, because anybody can tell you that sort of thing is going to happen no matter what type of event it is, no matter what type of game it is. Even
yes,
you're always going to have those issues.
Unfortunate.
I mean, a lot of people always come up with these ideas of how you could avoid it, but I think no matter what you do, the problem is you're always going to have those few people that are going to continue to do it.
Right, and if I could give any advice to Yu-Gi-Oh players listening to this right now, please make sure that you shower before you go to any kind of event. Of course, showering is an essential anyway, but still.
Or should be. Should be.
It should be.
I mean, hey, we don't judge, but general tips,
Right. I mean,
at least keep that in mind.
If you don't have enough money to shower, you shouldn't be playing Yu-Gi-Oh.
Right. Well, I mean, if you can afford the cards, you should be able to
exactly
pay your water bill.
Pay your water bill, and buy you some
that
clean clothes.
Buy that $2 bar of soap from Walmart. So outside of almost having your nose falling off, were there any other memorable events or people that you may have met at the event that kind of stick in your mind? People that you're going to remember?
Well, I will say this one thing. It is kind of out there, but I did go when I went into the bathroom, between rounds. It was an interesting experience. The toilet seat had more yellow spots than white spots. It was a little ridiculous.
So, as far as events goes, definitely not probably the most sanitary event.
Definitely not. I mean, no. I'd rather use a bathroom at a gas station than that.
Right.
But I mean, as far as the people went, I mean, the people were nice. I met a few of the big name players, and one in particular that I was speaking to. I mean, he was really nice. He has a store in Michigan. And, I noticed how there was a lot of people there from hundreds, 200, 1,000 miles away to come to that event. It was crazy.
It is certainly a sight to see just how far people will come for these sorts of events.
Exactly. There was one guy there who told me he came from, I think he said it's San Diego. And
that is very possible. I mean, the people will come from all corners to play at these sorts of events.
Oh, definitely. There's a guy there. I met a guy there from a online company who I'm not going to name, but there was one guy there from an online company who I knew was based out of Illinois. And I was like, wow, okay, a lot of people come to these things.
Right. All right, so my next question is going to kind of mix with the last two, I think. Did you have any issues at the event with players or staff? You got the typical crazy kid that Table flips, that sort of thing.
Well, not that I can recall any crazy players, but I will say this, during the time when we were trying to get our pairings and everything, I really thought that someone was going to break out and start fighting right in the middle of the conference room. I mean, it was a madhouse. I mean, there was this one kid who pushed another kid because he got up on him and everything, but I mean, just
The
the norm.
consequences of
Yeah, yeah,
overcrowding,
yeah. Normal teenager. Crap,
large event, high anxiety, I guess you could say.
Right.
Just
I mean, normal. What you would typically see out of a teenager, basically.
right,
Yeah.
right. Okay, so overall, and I know I've kind of asked this question, but as far as like overall, how was the experience of going to the event? Do you feel like it was a good experience to go?
I mean, it was a great experience. I mean, the vendors were great people. I mean, I ended up selling a lot of stuff that I didn't need to vendors for a decent price, for a vendor. But, a lot of the vendors were nice. I met a lot of great people. I mean, overall, it was fun. And, of course, the drive there and the drive back wasn't so great. I mean, we decided to go to a Cheesecake Factory afterwards, and we had to go further into Atlanta, and it took us 45 minutes to drive point 0.3 miles. Point 0.3 miles, not a quarter of a mile. And then we had to wait 2.5 hours for a table, and then we could have been home, and I think we got home about 1-2 o'clock that morning. It was crazy.
And what time did you leave that morning?
Oh, you mean the morning?
Yeah,
that we went
the
to
morning of the
tournament?
event.
Oh,
Just to kind of
we
give
left
a
at
time lapse.
we left at about 4:45, I think, and
So
the tournament, the registration, I believe, was at 9, and the tournament actually started at 10.
right. So overall, I mean, the side trips included, essentially in a 24-hour trip,
What's that?
nearly. I say essentially a 24-hour trip overall with the side trips and everything included. You said you got back at like 2 in the morning.
Yeah, I mean we stayed a good while. I mean, on up there. I mean, from where I live, I mean it took us maybe 2.5 hours to get there.
Right.
Of course, that's
Right.
without traffic.
right, and of course, from Alabama to Atlanta, it's not exactly a short trip, but it's not the longest trip.
No, no, definitely
Okay.
not.
All right. Well, on that, so now that you've gone to this event that you did as well as you did, do you plan on going to any future events like this one?
If it's in Atlanta, probably not. But I mean, if I can find the time with, through work and everything, if I have nothing going on at home with my wife or kids or anything like that, I might go again sometime. Who knows? You never know.
Okay. And that kind of leads into kind of our, I guess you could say, our final question, really. Uh, if should you choose to go to a future event, do you think there's any change in your preparation for the event that you would uh, like to have a better chance at? Anything you would change as far as preparing your decks, knowing exactly what you're going to go up against?
Oh, definitely. I mean, not change my event at the last. Excuse me, not to change my deck at the last minute would be one of them.
Right, of course. Okay, so overall, at the event, the top 32 showed a very large scale of variety of decks. Not necessarily many types of decks. A lot of them same kind of engines, but just as far as like I guess you could say interchangeable parts. Of the top 32, the breakdown would go essentially as pure Zodiacs, 15 decks, invoked Kaiju Zodiacs, 1 deck, uh, invoked Wind Witch, 1 deck, pure Frogs, 3 decks, Magispector Zodiacs, Metal Foes, 1 deck, Zodiac Infernoids, 2 decks, Invoke Zodiacs, 1, Kaiju Zodiacs, 7, which is, I guess, a good number for them, I guess. And I think that was it pretty much.
Yeah, and um, when I saw the final standings, I was very, very intrigued that the top deck, the first place deck, was a funky 55 card. I think it was a Paleozoic Frogs deck. Um, and you know, when you look at the deck, like I said before, when you look at the deck down on paper, it makes no sense. But obviously, to him, it made a lot of sense, and I respect him a lot for that because it's about time that someone won an event without net decking. And well, not saying that everybody who's won events have net decked, but I think that 90% of them do. And I'm not one of those people who likes to net deck, but at the same time, um, excuse me, knowing the meta and knowing what works and what doesn't, you know, definitely helps a lot. Of course, I had my own twists and turns to my deck. I knew there were certain things in there that I played that I knew worked well together. But I thought it was very interesting of the final standings, but it reached my expectation about knowing what the most decks were gonna be there. I think I played against at least 7 Zodiac decks. It was a little ridiculous, but
So
I was expecting it.
right, so definitely a Zodiac heavy format at this point.
Oh, definitely, yes.
And to take a small quote from the official Yu-Gi-Oh page from the event, the pure Zodiac deck seems to have shown itself to be the strongest this weekend. Kaiju builds are also very effective, and a couple of invoked variants made the cut as well. The Zodiac engine also made an appearance in Infernoid and Metal Foes decks, though the overall strategy of those decks is very different from typical Zodiacs. Paleozoics are the most successful non-Zodiac strategy. They've got tons of ways to disrupt enemy Zodiac decks with Paleozoic Deinamiscus and Paleozoic Canadia. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing these names. Uh, being standout answers. Wind Witches and a Shadal Burning Abyss hybrid are the final decks, with one deck of each represented in the top 32. So definitely showing the fact that over half the decks were at least some sort of Zodiac variant would definitely represent the fact that Zodiacs have a very strong hold on the format at this time.
Right, and one interesting thing that I was talking about to a couple of the players that I met there is the fact of, and this ties into what you were just talking about. It's been 6 months since we've had a ban list from Konami, and it's the one thing that worries me is the fact that Yu-Gi-Oh cannot play without a ban list. And
Right, absolutely.
Because if you don't have one, one deck is gonna dominate.
Of course.
And of course, you got to have the ban list to keep everything balanced. Get new decks to come up and give them a chance to shine. And
right. Otherwise, we're just going to see multiple tournaments of the exact same decks doing the exact same performance.
Yes,
and no one necessarily wants to see continuation after continuation with nothing ever changing.
Right, and I'm hoping that this YCS, the winner of the YCS, encourages people to be creative with their own decks. Stop. You don't have to net deck to win.
Absolutely correct.
And of course, like I said before, this game is about having fun playing. Play what you like, not necessarily what's good. Play what you like, and you make it good by liking it.
Absolutely. And of course, it's all in whether you're able to enjoy the deck you play, as you've said earlier.
Right.
Not a lot of point in trying to play a deck you don't enjoy.
Of course not. If you do that, you're gonna get burnt out on the game. You're gonna sit there and say, well, why am I playing this? I'm not having a good time, and I'm spending all this money, and I'm not even enjoying myself.
Right. Um, okay, well, that's as far as those types of things. Um, that's pretty much going to end all the actual questions I have. So, but sitting here, I have actually come up with a couple other things I'd like to go over. So, do you, knowing everything that's happened at the event, do you feel like, as you said with the ban list, my question would essentially be: do you feel like the results of this YCS could essentially influence the next ban list?
Um, I think it can, and I think it will. Um, I don't necessarily think that they're going to do anything with Paleozoics, to be honest with you. I really don't. Um, because, it was an out of the box deck. Now, and the reason I say that is because I'm pretty sure the guy knew that a lot of people were going to be expecting Wimwitch and artifacts, so not a lot of people were running Twin Twisters. I'm sure he knew that and he figured that out and he said, hey, this can work to my advantage. But as far as excuse me, as far as influencing the ban list, the one card that I think is going to get hit, and I think a lot of people believe it's going to get hit, is Speedboard Terratop, because that is one thing that enables Zodiac's turn 1 to get an MX Saber Invoker out and enable them to bring out a Wrapped Pier from their deck by detaching one. I mean, it's a little ridiculous. And But I think that's one of the cards that's going to get hit. I don't really know if I think that Zodiac Barrage is going to get hit or not, because I mean, even if it does, if it gets, say, semi-limited or even limited, I don't think it's going to hurt Zodiacs that much, because they'll still have Tinky, they'll still have their plays to be able to bring out Rat Pier. Honestly, I think in all of my games, I relied on Barrage one time.
So certainly, essentially, what you're saying is not a card that necessarily could efficiently destabilize the deck just off that one card
Exactly.
getting
Now,
hit.
if they did something to Rat Pier, it would really destabilize that deck because it needs Rat Pier. It
Right.
really does.
And and of course, certainly, Konami doesn't always technically just always target a specific card just to completely destroy its playability.
Um.
It's proven to have happened, but it's not
Yes.
always the case that that's specifically what they try to do.
That's right. I mean, of course, I don't think any of us playing Yu-Gi-Oh totally understands why Konami does everything they do, but um, I do believe that they try their best with the ban list to keep the game fair and balanced. Um,
Right, and sometimes you're just going to have those temporary, those one or two decks that kind of slip through the cracks, uh, that no one really sees coming, and it's just the player base, the innovative players that manage to find those slight loopholes where they're able to make those just breakout
oh
decks.
yes, and the perfect example was first place at YCS this past weekend. That
Right,
was a perfect
and
example.
so on that note, should I unlikely that he's listening to this video, but to Mr. Corey Roca, I hope I'm getting your name correct. But to you, sir, congratulations on your win for the exceptional play. I unfortunately did not have the time to watch the entire stream from the video, but I did manage to catch a couple of clips. Very nicely played, sir. You did a very good job with a very new, innovative deck, very different. Um, so congratulations on with your win. Of course, we hope to see you do potentially more great things throughout the year. So on that note, that's pretty much going to wrap it up for the video. So Jeff, thank you for taking the time out of your day to come do this video with me.
Definitely, Jamie. I really appreciated it. And like I said, I enjoyed it. And I might go back to one of these events that's not in Atlanta, Georgia.
Right, typically maybe something a little closer to home.
Yeah, of course, but I seriously doubt that will happen. I've never seen, well, besides Tuscaloosa, maybe regionals, but yes, overall it was enjoyable, and I enjoyed my time with you, Jamie. Thank you very much.
Of course, and we certainly appreciate the time. So guys, we're going to go ahead and start wrapping up this video. If you enjoyed, make sure to hit that like button if you haven't already. Subscribe to the channel for all future content. If you enjoyed the video with Jeff and you'd like to see him come back for more videos, maybe not necessarily on Yu-Gi-Oh or this type of video, but we'd definitely like to see a little bit more interaction with him. Let us know in the comments. We'll definitely see if we can't get him back for future videos. So again, guys, thanks for watching. Have a great night.
And don't forget, guys, keep your nose clean and subscribe to this guy.
That's right. Thank you. Have a nice night, guys.